My name is Pete Harrison. I'm from the European Climate Foundation. I work on the issue of transport. And as the European Climate Foundation, we focus very much on the long term, what is needed to achieve the 2050 goals in particular. And I've just thought I'd show a couple of slides to set the scene. This first slide comes from the International Council on Clean Transportation, and it shows the progress that has been made with reducing emissions, CO2 emissions from cars around the world. And what we see is steady progress for the last, well, in fact, it also covers future targets. So 2 decades there of steady progress from cars and light vans. And we see in particular a convergence. So there was a time where the EU really led the world by a long way in terms of fuel efficiency, with Japan only really giving the only real challenge. In future we see the United States catching up. That could be a warning sign for the European car industry. There will be more competition in the future for the sale of fuel-efficient cars. Also China is coming into the picture there in 2020. So that's what we expect around 2020, a world of strong competition between markets for very fuel-efficient cars. Now, it's difficult to be so clear about trucks. This is one of the better resources. It's a project called Routes to 2050, convened by DG Klima, which starts to look at what reductions in CO2 are needed from transport to achieve the goals outlined in the Transport White Paper. So essentially it asks the question, what contribution in terms of CO2 reduction must trucks make, in this slide, to reach the 60% target? And all of these downward trajectories are viable. The top one is business as usual, obviously, that's the reference case. The purple line is very optimistic in terms of its assumptions on measures outside the truck sector itself, so road charging, fuel taxation. So probably the lower 4 trajectories all reach the 2050 goals. The upper ones rely very heavily on decarbonisation of liquid fuels, and the lower ones include more electrification. So just to sort of bear in mind what's needed in terms of CO2 reduction. Doesn't really tell us anything about technology. And this next slide tells us a little more about the assumptions used in that project. And you'll see by 2040 we're moving to large amounts of hybrids for medium trucks, large amounts of plug-in hybrids, and quite a significant chunk of EVs. Now, I'll leave it there, because that's as much as I know. But I thought it might set the scene nicely for what is needed in terms of CO2 reduction from heavy vehicles. Some of our panelists are going to help us answer the question of what is actually possible and achievable.